about it.
Well, not quite. There's one thing I'm curious about, which is your approach to learning. What were you like as a student?
I was a bit of a nerd, I must say. I loved studying. I studied ancient languages, Greek and Latin, and I wanted to become a professor. Life is unpredictable. I met a guy, my boyfriend, he was studying economics, and because he was not really a brilliant student, I was helping him studying economics. And by helping him, actually I fell in love with economics. He left university and I signed up to economics. I ended up leaving him as well. But it's weird, right? How life is unpredictable, and that's the advice I always give people when you guys listen these amazing stories of you fix an objective, go for your dream when you are a child. Well, that might be the case, but in my case, if it wasn't for all the weird circumstances of life, I wouldn't be here. My approach to learning is truly driven by curiosity and passion. I love Greek, Latin, as well as I love financial mathematics. I wanted to become a banker when I was really in love. Then what happened actually, there was a craft that came to the university for a marketing plan to a contest. I participated, but I was already doing my major in mathematics. And actually I fell in love with marketing as well. And then I searched which is the best company to work on to learn marketing, and Procter & Gamble popped up. That I sent my CV and that's where I started working. So I follow the passion a lot, and I'm extremely curious, and I really believe the breadth of studies help a lot in life, especially now that we need to be adult.
I agree. You mentioned in an interview a few months ago that one of the biggest things you learned during the early stages of your career was how to make decisions fast. There is, however, an element of risk to every decision you make, especially when you're put in a situation where you need to make one under certain time constraints. You've written before that, and I am quoting you on this.
Oh my God. Already, we go higher.
I'm taking notes.
Taking notes.
I'm flattered, thank you. As leaders, we often think we need to have the answers. But our true power lies in how we respond when we don't, in how we show up during uncertainty, in how we let change refine us, not define us, and in how we learn and listen. With this in mind, how do you manage uncertainty, and how guaranteed do you need the outcome to be to take the next step?
First of all, I believe there are two dichotomies. One is being a knower or being a learner. As we're used to, maybe you guys are much younger and you're not, but I was used when I started working to this idea that the manager, the leader knew everything. He was the guy or the lady in the know, and the learning was left to all the other people. And actually, if that is the case, the knower is disrupted after a few months. And you see what's happening every year. There are new discoveries, new ways of working, new things in the market, unexpected moments. If you think you know and you don't learn, you're dead. You can't react. And the other dichotomy for me is between expertise and skills. I like expertise. There are jobs that requires expertise. I mean, watchmakers, I cannot improvise myself a watchmaker. I cannot even take in my hand at one screw, imagine assembling a watch. But there are leadership roles that where expertise is a killer, and skills are much more important. The ability to use your skill, even if you are not an expert of the field, an expert of the job or the product, to respond. So I believe in the world of today that you guys are facing more and more, the most important skill is the agility, the ability to spot the trend, pivot, reinvent a career, reskilling, unlearning, relearning, everything that at the time was not needed because the world was moving very slow. Now it's necessary.
Well, every step in your career has involved you stepping into a somewhat new and more specialized industry, which must have required not only the ability to deal with uncertainty, but really immense adaptability on your part. We've just discussed your approach to learning as a student in an academic context, but in this more corporate context, how did you approach learning the nuances of the different industries while establishing credibility?
Well, I had the fortune to work for a multinational company that changed me in P&G in different categories and different regions. I worked in the UK, in France, in the Middle East, in the US, and every time you change, even within the same company, you need to, first of all, understand the landscape around you differently. So the muscle of agility is ingrained and is trained this way. How do I learn? I learned a lot, and I was a bad learner because I was somebody who would speak straight away and give opinion very early. And in reality, I learned the best way to learn is to observe and not to ask, because when you ask, it's supposed to rationalize answer from people or filter reality. When you observe, you see the reality. That's why I believe in observational behaviors of clients, consumers, rather than focus groups when you ask them, what do you like? It's much more insightful to see things. And when I had a chance to learn at best was when you observe your people working, you observe the meetings, you observe the people doing at their job or workstation, and you spot the opportunities that they even themselves don't realize. So that's, I believe, is a critical part of learning is the observation.
Couldn't agree more. Let's move on to your current role at Audemars Piguet. A lot of leaders who have transitioned into a CEO position at a company have said that their first mission was growth and internationalization. You, on the other hand, have said that you were most focused on guaranteeing the perennity of the company as an independent family business that deals not only in timepieces, but in relationships. Could you please elaborate?
First of all, let me tell you that there are two words that everybody says when they're leading a company. They're obsessed about two things, growth and transformation. I think if you type the most used word by leaders is this, which makes sense because many publicly traded company requires growth because we need to reward shareholders, right? So it's a fact. But growth is not an objective. It's an outcome of the right objective which you need to define, each leader needs to define. So growth is just a measure. What is missing is what type of objective are you aspiring to. The objective that was given to me by the board of directors, and I'm honoring their desire, is to keep the company independent forever in the hands of the family. To do so, you need to have a healthy financial. So I'm not saying don't worry, screw the P&L, it's okay. You need to have a very solid foundation, which is cash, revenues, profitability. Growth per se is not necessarily an objective. Sometimes actually growth could weaken a company if you don't have the conditions to grow and the solidity to grow over time. We do not need to grow at Audemars Piguet to sustain our independence. What we need to do to sustain independence is to produce exceptional timepieces that are desired because they represent more than a watch. They represent an emotion, a piece of history, a piece of culture, and that's what is necessary. If we produce more watches, it's because we need to serve potentially more clients, but we will never do it at the expense of how we do the watches, because how we do the watches define who we are. We are a craft, a company based in craftsmanship and excellence, and we will never shortcut growth at the expense of this craftsmanship.
Thanks to globalization and social media, there has long been this paradoxical conundrum, if you will, within the luxury industry of how to preserve tradition and uphold an aura of exclusivity while still embracing modernity and maintaining global availability. Audemars Piguet is a storied institution, yet it has managed to remain at the forefront of innovation. In your opinion, how has the brand successfully reconciled these two dynamics so well?
First of all, it's a strategic choice. Not all brands need to be this duality of tradition and future and evolution. You can be legitimate and wonderful in being in one of the two spaces. So the market has always been pushing the boundaries forward while still being attached to the past. And this dichotomy and healthy tension is what made Audemars Piguet what it is today. And how do we do it? First of all, we make sure that we decide what is the part of the history that belongs to us and we want to preserve and evolve. I give you the example. The way we manufacture is something we will never touch and modernize in the sense of adopting machines. But the perpetual calendar, for example, which is a movement that we belongs to our history, yes, we will continue to modernize it. We will continue to move forward. Yes, we are playful with the pop art. The example of the collaboration with Marvel or with Cause is an example of one day who knows which artist or what type of collaboration we could do. This is part of our DNA. But you need to do it right. You cannot overdo one of the two, otherwise you lose your soul.
Very true. Nowadays, the luxury market is seeing a growing shift towards a younger, more diverse demographic. How is Audemars Piguet addressing the evolving tastes and expectations of the modern client who now values authenticity and ethical responsibility just as much as the idea of luxury?
That's an excellent point, because thank God we were in sustainability well before it became a topic and a fashion and a trend. The company has been extremely attached to the ballet, and we've been investing in multiple areas like the environment with a foundation that donates to trees for multiple years without even telling, I tell because I think it's important that we create a good habit of giving back to nature and giving back to society. For us, an important aspect is also the social aspect of training kids, people to become one day watchmakers, because this is a profession that might disappear and is part of our culture and cannot disappear, so we preserve it. Definitely we do all the good steps that every company does and needs to do in controlling the CO2 emissions. This is a must. I call it the hygiene part of any company behavior. And then the rest is all about really being authentic, which frankly we cannot fake it, authenticity. That's why we believe in opening the door of the manufacturing, show how the product is done. When we show the product is done, people have a wow moment, because they think, I thought it was a marketing stunt that you do it by hand. In reality, that's the entire manufacturing that assemble the watches by hand. Then there are definitely machines for certain operations, but the idea is they see what we do. That's why we like to have the AP house as a retail format, because it's not a boutique, but it's truly a house, a home where you can interact with the staff members, you can sit, have a coffee, just discover and go. No expectation of having a transaction there. That's something that the younger generation appreciate, and don't forget the art, commitment, and the music. These are not platform that we do because we want to attract people. These are platforms that we've been using as a passion of the employees, as a passion of the shareholders, and we share them with our clients as a way, if you want to have conversation that go beyond which watch do you want to buy.
Well, we certainly had our wow moment just now. Even though the watch was not right in front of us, we did feel the effect. Audemars Piguet has a very, very long history, and it has been a pioneer in the watchmaking industry. The Royal Oak, for example, was a revolutionary design that really defined a new category of luxury watches, and certainly luxury sports watches, when it was first introduced in 1972. As Audemars Piguet celebrates its 150th anniversary this year, how are you planning to ensure that the brand can remain ahead of its time?
By listening, observing, seeing what the new generations will bring. The only way to future-proof a brand is to be relevant with all the new generation. And we are extremely happy that the Gen Zers, the Gen Alpha, are very interested in watchmaking, mechanical watchmaking, very interested in unplugging more and more and go to a piece like this instead of a smart watch, or both at the same time. So that is happening, but again, we need to earn this passion. We need to continue talking, communicating, explaining what it is watchmaking. That's why we do exhibitions all over the world to make sure that people can just come and see and discover a passion that is contagious, honestly.
Thinking about progress, the watch industry has conventionally categorized designs by gender. When a woman walks into a boutique, she is often met with the lines, "This watch is too big for your wrist, try this lady's model instead." Or, God forbid, watches are a man's hobby. The truth is that more and more women don't necessarily want ladies' watches anymore. Those who have discovered a genuine love for watches just want watches in general, and therefore tend to gravitate towards brands who design for passion and not for gender. To them, the watch does not define the woman defines the watch. As more and more women enter the world of watch collecting, how is Audemars Piguet working to challenge these stereotypes and cater to enthusiasts alike, rather than adhere to gendered expectations?
First of all, we stop talking about men watch, women watch, because who are we to decide which watch is for whom, right? We let them choose. Definitely, as I say, the dimension of a watch plays a role. There are a certain area of comfort. There are certain dimensions that cannot go on a certain wrist. But first, for example, I'm wearing a 41 watch that is a bit beyond the dimension of my wrist. It would have been categorized as a man watch. I love it and I wear it with pride, as well as sometimes I wear a very small watch. I think by biasing the way we call watches over multiple years, we disconnected with women, so they didn't feel represented. And there was a study actually by Deloitte, I guess, that interviewed many women, and they said, 70% of them said, I don't see myself portrayed by this industry for who I am. Because I'm portrayed as the one who wants diamonds, wants a gold watch, maybe even a quartz, because I'm so stupid I cannot regulate the watch. So this is the wrongdoing of multiple years, and now more and more the industry is waking up and responding to women.
Speaking of gender, the watch industry has long been associated not just with male clientele, but with primarily male leadership. All things considered, what systemic challenges do you believe still exist for women in leadership, and how can organizations address these effectively to level the playing field?
I don't know, I don't see much challenges, because I'm somebody that I'm extremely vocal. If I feel and I see bias, I call them out. I think more and more women are earning their place in different industries. It's about giving them an opportunity. I have not talked much about genderizing leadership role. Certainly the narrative needs to stop being this is a man industry, and as a woman you cannot lead a man industry, because I guess there are many men who lead female industries, by the way, I cannot name, but many. So I think leadership has nothing to do with the gender. Leadership has to do with the ability to be clear on the strategies and drive. And we need to allow women to have the place they want, but also women need to earn, right, the places.
Thinking more generally now, leadership styles often evolve over time. But if you were to reflect on your journey through Procter & Gamble, from Manish, and now Audemars Piguet, what would you say has been the most consistent element of your leadership philosophy?
The circular leadership approach. The idea of not working at the top of a pyramid as a leader, but decompose the organization of the company in a way that becomes really circular, which means you remove the filters of hierarchy, which doesn't mean everybody in the company reports to me, because this is the answer that sometimes people tell me. It's not that. It's the ability to go straight to the source of information, the people closer to the business, the people closer to the external world, and avoid the unnecessary filters, like meetings when you have 4 reporting lines to you in the pyramid. Maybe there is no need, you go straight to the person who does the job. and you get the answer. That is the way I interpret circular leadership. That is also a way for me to get the truth from people. A leader is blind and is deaf. He is deaf. He doesn't see, doesn't hear, and only gets what people want you to see and hear, right? I want to avoid that, because being alone at the top of a pyramid in a world that is changing so fast, it's a threat for a leader, right? You need to be able to see and respond quickly and observe. So I remove these filters with my leadership style, or at least I try to. I have an open office policy, so when the door of the office is open, people can come in and there is no appointment and anybody can come in. And over time, people get used to, and you feel the company much better.
Ilaria, once upon a time you were just like one of us, a student or young professional.
Once upon a time, you make it sound
Well, it's true, up to interpretation. But today, you are a role model, not just for everyone here in the audience, but for your fellow colleagues and industry leaders as well. You've spoken on numerous occasions about the importance of asking for help and seeking guidance from others. So I wonder, was there a role model or certain someone who you looked up to throughout your career? And what has been the best piece of advice you've received that has stayed with you until today?
I can tell you that the best advice has been from my boss that said, do what you think is right and apologize later if necessary. That was the CEO of P&G, and it was so liberating for me to say, you know what, take it. And if you really, really screw up, fine, there will be a solution. But this is such an empowering advice that I cherish still today, that talks about accountability. With accountability comes, of course, responsibility, so there are consequences, but please try. And the second thing for me is to really ask for feedback to everybody. I mean, it's tough, huh? Because you need to ask feedback and then listen to the feedback, and you need to force the negative feedback. And that's the only way to improve, because we all see here, we don't see behind and up and down, and we need to be able to see ourselves from outside. And it requires courage. I always shiver when I receive feedback, but after I feel like what a gift it is. And if you communicate to people, feedback is a gift. You are helping me now. Tell me what's wrong. It becomes a habit, and that's the best help you can have. And then also do the same, but also ask for help. Never be afraid or ashamed to call people and say, listen, I saw you there, I saw you were having this expertise, can you help me? You will be amazed to see and know how many people are willing to help you. It's a moment of pride to help others, so don't be ashamed, be unapologetic, and ask if you need.
Well, you have said in the past that you are a very curious person. So how can students balance the need to specialize in a field with the openness and curiosity to explore other opportunities?
It needs to be natural and spontaneous. In a sense, curiosity needs to come from your passions, honestly. And every career and study plan is completely different one another. I would really, really refrain from becoming uber specialized, which is necessary in many fields, and keep always a door outside, because as you know, the best inventions in humanity didn't come from the hyper specialization, came from connecting the dots. When a failure in one field happened to be a success in another. So the best inspiration I got are not when I look with the microscope, is when I look with the telescope that I have more ideas. So I think really this ability to go deep and at a certain point in time have an helicopter view, it will help, especially in solving problems. Most of the problems are solved and the ideas come in the shower, running, or doing sports, right? When you disconnect from your obsession of every day. And you see things more clearly when you leave the site and you go back and look again, right? It's in the brain. It's the way brain functions. So please find the passion, find the distraction. That distraction will help you to focus even more. That's right.
You've said in the past that the 3 guiding principles in your life are love, learned and legacy?
You are going to become my biography.
I would be all right and
I don't remember even my names.
That's a risky choice. I don't even remember what I wore last week, so we'll see how that goes.
I go for you.
We've talked about love and passion for what you're doing. We mentioned learning at the beginning of this interview. So now what legacy do you hope to leave behind for the individuals in the luxury industry and wider business world?
Well, the legacy is truly, for me, is always on the organization. I want to build an organization that doesn't need any leader, and doesn't need me, and can survive and thrive forever. You need to be a bit egoless to leave that legacy, but that's my dream. An organization that is happier than before. That's my dream.
That's beautifully said. Well, we are nearing the end of this interview, which means that our most attentive audience will soon be given the opportunity to ask you some of their burning questions. But before this, Ilaria, it is voice from tradition to end our interview with a series of 4 questions in line with our mission statement, today for tomorrow. You ready?
Ready?
We often say that the future belongs to those who prepare for it. So my first question to you is, what are you doing today that you believe will have the greatest impact on your vision for tomorrow?
Understand what's going to happen in the future and scenario planning.
Second, what is the single biggest opportunity that business leaders must seize today in order to create a better tomorrow?
Build the future talent.
Third, what is one change that you hope to see in business or in leadership, apart from what we've already discussed? And how will implementing this change impact that vision that you've created in your head for tomorrow?
Being truly authentic, when people say we're an authentic company, authentic brand, authentic and quality.
Fourth and final question. If you had all the resources in the world and you knew that you wouldn't fail, what dream would you go all in on?
Create apprenticeship places where people, after they studied, can work, try, and before they commit on a job. Because I think what is very difficult for when I was a student, maybe for some of you, is the choice is a bit paralyzing and to be channeled somewhere. It would be cool when you study to have the chance to do at the same time an apprenticeship and opening up to all the students that cannot afford or don't have the contacts to do that.
Well, Ilaria, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is yours now, so there will be a microphone going around the room. And if you would like to ask Ilaria a question, please raise your hand, and one of our team members will find you. Kindly remember to keep your questions concise, respectful, and relevant to the discussion. I just saw a hand go down. I'm sorry for that. So let's begin here in front. Where is the microphone? Oh, okay. Let's begin there then.
Hi, thank you. You mentioned about digital and Apple watches, and I heard at Wonderset Watches that they actually succeeded in engaging a new generation with like that old idea of watches. What do you think about that? Do you think that that was like a price point of entry for a new customer base in different generations? I would love your thoughts on that.
Actually, a very good question. Actually, what studies demonstrated is that what we thought it would have been a replacement actually created even more interest in mechanical watches, because the job to be done of a smartwatch is different from the mechanical watch. Now, I don't have a smartwatch, but they have a connected device that gives me the magic of health. And they coexist nicely, and we see more and more generation letting the two tools coexist. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation and your wonderful insights. So my question is regarding what you mentioned about observation being the most important thing, specifically when you were talking about the different groups of people that purchase your watches, and the fifth group was traders, and I was very impressed by the fact that you included that and extended it as part of the reality of your business. But in the following slides, when you were speaking of catering to different groups, you mentioned nothing about traders, which is understandable because there's nothing you probably would want to cater to them. But my question is, how do you feel about that specific group of people, so the traders, and how do you find the values of percentages of the number of people that belong to different groups, like the connoisseurs versus the traders, stylists, etc.?
First of all, these percentages are not fixed. It's a very good question. Because even you in your life can move around, and even traders, there are some collectioners who trade a part of their collection to refresh it, for example. So we cater to them in different way, knowing also that it depends on the life stage they are, or maybe they can be two profile at once. And for the traders, we're thinking actually a platform that we might launch in the future to support people who want to refresh their collection. Let's go to the back.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. You mentioned the importance of being able to pivot and adapt at different stages in life. And I was wondering if you had a personal experience or personal story where you realized the direction you were going in was not the right direction, and then you pivoted to another sector in the company or another type of interest you were working on?
From a career standpoint, I pivoted when, at the end of the 23 years in P&G, I felt one day after a meeting with the board, I felt in the zone, as the Americans say, you know, when you feel, wow, I got it. And that was a very dangerous feeling to have, because when you feel like that, you feel you know, and then very soon you will not know anymore. And then I decided at that moment to leave, because if I would have stayed, I would have, and it's nothing wrong to stay forever in the same company, but it was not my desire. So I pivoted to something different, and I decided I could have gone to Unilever, L'Oreal, all the typical FMCG giants, but I felt that was not a big enough of a change, so I decided to go for the extreme of a Swiss company, private, B2B instead of B2C, because my desire at the time was to maximize my learning opportunity. But again, you need to be clear on what is your objective. My objective was departure from what I've done and learn a new thing. Thank you.
Let's go down here for the question we missed in the beginning.
Well, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. It was marvelous. You talked about embracing the mistakes, being humble, not to be afraid. How do you tackle stress, being a leader of such a great company, not to actually make this kind of mistakes? Or how do you just, make a piece of yourself if you do? A room full of students, and I think we're, are very stressed, just passing some exams, and when you have to actually lead a whole company, a whole family of people, what kind of skills and how do you manage that? What's your name?
But yeah, the truth is, when I was your age, I was stressed like hell, and that's the whole truth. Actually, I was telling my parents before the exam, this one I'm never gonna pass. I promise you. At the time, there were not even the mobile phones, so my parents were in the dark. What's going on with this woman? Did she pass the exam? And I truly, genuinely believe I didn't pass any of the exams. So I had stress forever. I was stressed at the kindergarten for not covering. So, but after, I believe stress, by the way, it's necessary to give you the adrenaline and the obsession for perfection. So I don't want to codify stress as a bad thing. Of course, if it's over, we need to control it. But what was very liberating was when I decided to embrace myself, because when I was young and I went into P&G, the model of the successful leader didn't represent me at all. I have a sense of humor, I'm approachable. As you see me, you will see me at home, at dinner, I don't change. I dress maybe better here than but that's truly, you see me and you don't see the difference. And that's really, really important, because the fatigue and the stress you put on yourself to mimic somebody else that you define as a successful person is a disaster. It's a recipe for disaster, because you will never be as good as somebody who's not you. Impossible. You can only be excellent as yourself. That was liberating, and all of a sudden, by being myself, in all honesty, I chose the jobs that reflected my passion. I started becoming successful, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Honestly, for my energy level, I really believe in the importance of sports. This morning I went running, I have my passion for tennis. I tried really to have a complete life that keeps me out of the obsession for work. But don't think I am this cool because I was stressed like hell. I became cool with age. Thank you, Ilaria.
Thank you, Ilaria. My name is Mercy, and I'm currently building a sports marketing agency for the underrepresented athletes. But my question for you today is, how do you believe that the watchmaking industry, let's say AP in particular, can help create real opportunities for young, aspiring watchmakers, especially in regions like Africa, where access to training and resources is limited? Because I'm currently working on a foundation to build like different opportunities for them. So how can AP help with help in countries where resources are limited?
That's a very, very good question. That would be, by the way, the answer to the number 4 question she gave me on my dream. I think, really, first of all, the first step is getting them to know that this job exists. Okay? And then, of course, the moment there is a group of people that are interested, we can organize workshops. It's important that, first of all, we marry the talent and the passion. This is a job that requires also a certain level of dexterity of the hands. Stuff that we forgot we use exists because we have only one finger approach sometimes with the phone. But yeah, the idea is really to cater to them, drive the interest, and then we need watchmakers, so the more the merrier. It's a long and exciting career.
Sorry, can I ask another question? Sorry, quickly. How does AP go about selecting ambassadors, especially in the sports industry? Like, what makes an athlete worthy of being an ambassador?
2 things. Firstly, they need to love watches ideally. They need to genuinely want to wear watches. So most of them, a lot of them were clients that buy their watches. And then the most important also is they need to match our values and our personality, right? So we want to create truly friends. We call them more friends of the brands than some of them, because we want them to participate to our story, not just being paid one day by AP, another day by another brand.
Hi, Ilaria. Thank you so much for the talk. It was really insightful. So you've emphasized the importance of maintaining the Audemars legacy and really staying true to its roots. So I was wondering how that translates into your partnerships with artists and influencers and celebrities. How do you make sure to choose partners that are going to accurately embody the brand?
It's a bit what I was talking about, the importance of having values. When it comes to artists, it's a bit different, because the reason why we partner with artists is because we want to support their creative process without interference. So we don't give them a brief, create a piece of art that is representing Audemars Piguet or watchmaking. It's totally free, and actually shouldn't have. We have a commission of art that judges them without coming from the company. So we really separate. We want to be really mecenate of art and not just paying art. That's very important for us, and we do it because we believe the creative process should be free, and we should learn from them, the artists, on how we can free up the creative process.
Okay, thank you.
Hi Ilaria, thank you for the talk, I really appreciate it. So I have a super quick question, and then I'm going to pass to my husband because he probably has a question. He brought me here. He's an unpaid subject matter expert at watches. I just was more curious about your kind of career trajectory. Arguably some of the companies you've worked for and shaped, I think, have been quite kind of women-oriented, and the agenda has been, I guess, somewhat feminist in a positive sense, whereas watches, perhaps you'd agree, are typically quite male-dominated. It's unfortunate, but it's, I think, somewhat reality. Often a lot of men are affiliated with perhaps the C-suite and the board level. What made you sort of transition into such a heavily male-dominated industry is my question.
But I didn't realize it was male-dominated because I was lucky enough to have a career where the gender was never a topic. I realized it as soon as I received the first question from the journalist asking me how did I feel being in a male-dominated. I realized, yes, it's true, it's a male-dominated. But I never feel that being an impediment or an issue in any type. And I believe the more we think about it, the more it becomes an issue. So I prefer to not talk about it, but if there are biases that I recognize, sometimes questions that I receive, like, are you scared or afraid to join this industry? I typically question that no man would receive. I call out the question as a biased question. So be unapologetic and brave and call them out.
Hi, Ilaria. My question is slightly different. You talk about preserving AP's legacy looking forward, but one thing at least I observe is that what pop culture has existed was always slightly longer in terms of how it lasted, but we're very much in this fast culture period of time, and as AP looks always probably planning for 5-10 years, and things are moving so quickly. So how do you start, yes, remaining agile, but also not going down the route which ends up potentially being damaging to the brand? It was very localized in that moment in time where everyone jumped on the bandwagon from a cultural perspective, and it all fizzled out, and then 5 years, 10 years later, you realise that that aspect had potential of damaging and being long-lasting impact on the brand. So how do you navigate and manage how that world has changed?
That's a super, super good question, and there is not a really easy answer. What I can tell you that when we choose a path which intercepts an artistic movement, we know by definition that some can be long-lasting, some others are short-term. But if you look at the Brutalist watch that we did, the Brutalist didn't exist for long. Now there is somebody who is more interested. But even if not, it's great to have chapters that were right and true for that moment in time. We had an article chapter, so that is okay. What we are not okay with is anything that touches the reputation of the brand. So we believe that the moment we create a watch that is tapping into a cultural movement and as an excellence in watchmaking, in horological excellence, it has a reason for being. If this collaboration is just opportunistic to tap into a trend, then it's not right, and that is something we avoid. Right?
Hi Ilaria, thank you so much for your service today. You have really given us some key takeaways that I'm very excited to implement. I wanted to know your thoughts on, I'm a young entrepreneur at the moment and I'm in the luxury space, but I wanted to know your thoughts on commanding luxury, knowing that you're kind of new in the industry, because when people look into luxury, look at brands like AP that have been running for 150 years and things like that. What would you say are some key principles that young business owners and founders can kind of stick to create their own legacy amongst everything and all the noise with social media today?
First of all, that's a very good question. First of all, really try to be specific and not mimic the success of others, okay? Bring your added value without questioning will it be a success or not. The worst failures are the successes planned on a piece of paper. Like you say, okay, let me decodify success. If you decodify success, you charge GPT success, trust me, you will fail 100%. Because the biggest successes in luxury, like in art, are really things that you would never expect they can survive the test of time, right? And why do they succeed? Because they are truly authentic and solving for something that could be a passion, a desire, a nostalgic moment, and they are extremely true to the story. Then when people say a brand that has a success as a story to tell, is absolutely true. how many brands are successful because they were born from, I don't know, housewife who were trying to solve their skin problem, and actually we bought few of them, making them billionaire, because they couldn't find the skin cream for them, and they decided to design the skin cream to solve their problem. It was an authentic need, it was an authentic story, the ingredients made sense, success. If you want to do a skincare program, a solution, just faking it and preparing it non-authentically, you will never make it.
Can I just ask, what would then make the difference for a legacy brand that maybe doesn't cater to luxury? What would be the differing kind of thing that makes it different for a luxury brand versus a non-luxury brand?
I have a big struggle with the definition of luxury, I must confess, because luxury is associated with the three things: expensive or costly. One of the two depends on if you're really worth the price. It could be one of the two. It's exclusivity, and it's in a way status symbol. Some have or not craftsmanship. These are the vectors of defining the luxury. I think I've managed a toilet cleaner and Audemars Piguet, okay, as a product. So I go very wide in the span of luxury and non-luxury. In all honesty, it doesn't make much difference in the way success is created, provided that you solve for something uniquely and that touches the chord of a need or an emotion. If you solve for that, regardless of the product, luxury or not, you can win. That's why it's really agnostic, category agnostic and price agnostic, the recipe of success.
Thank you so much. Over here, please. In the middle.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Bassett Khan. My question is about, so Audemars Piguet obviously represents luxury and arts, craftsmanship, and all these things that are very valuable to humans. But why should Audemars Piguet be important to those people who are outside the direct consumer base? You can't, like, most people will never be able to afford to buy Audemars Piguet. Why should they still value it?
Because I'm not sure I understand where the question is, why people who are outside of the...
Sort of the direct consumer base of Audemars Piguet still value the things that Audemars Piguet does. That makes sense.
Okay, so people that are not buying today.
Yes.
And how can they value the brand?
Like,
they don't know.
Why should they value the things that Audemars Piguet does? And why should that be important to?
Well, first of all, I think it should touch the chords of emotions. Okay? I don't think it's a rational conversation because we're talking something nobody needs, right? So if, the reason why you should be interested is by watching a movie, by seeing the watch on the wrist of somebody else. What does it give you as an emotion? Touch it, to see it, to wear it. If there is an emotion, it's a product for you. If there isn't, I wouldn't buy it, right? Because it's not for a purpose. What we see is that when people learn about, and I'm talking necessarily about Piguet, I'm talking mechanical watchmaking in general. I have huge respect for many brands there. The moment you start seeing and understanding how watches are made, it's very, very difficult that your answer is, I'm uninterested in that.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Your mic, so.
Hello, hi. So I wonder, in today's age of rapid change, how do you balance the need to sort of aggressively innovate with the need to sort of retain the essence of AP, the time-tested essence?
Great question. I tell you, the aggressive innovation is a danger, okay? Because first of all, the timings in watchmaking are such that by the time you decide something and implement it so long that if it's a trend that is not there to stay, you are always too late. So innovation follows a path that is anchored to excellence, some functionality, but also discovery of new materials, discovery of new movements. So we stay very consistent to our strategy. So even in a world that changed dramatically, if a company shifts strategy, it means that company has not done a good job with strategies. Because strategies are not, they work until proven wrong. They are proven right when everything is wrong, actually. It's exactly the reason why we have a strategy, right? So I think that innovation needs to follow a strategic vector or multiple vectors. If you are not clear on the strategies, you risk to be opportunistic, and then it's never successful innovation.
If you could pass the microphone that way, please.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. My name is Katrina. I have a little bit of a provocative question, but I still hope it's going to be interesting and spark a discussion and maybe a thought. Coming in here, I didn't have a lot of expectations, but I was a bit surprised by your presentation in a good way, specifically about certain points in messaging, like openness, inclusivity. I'm not sure. Is it working?
No.
Speak up.
Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have said about provocative question. Maybe
You've been filtered. I'm sorry.
So I was saying about openness, inclusivity. I actually went on Instagram to check the campaign for 150 years, and there's different demographics, age groups, etc. And the open doors. And I'm gonna, in the interest of time, tell a short anecdote that I had in my experience with Audemars Piguet. I was traveling with my boyfriend for my birthday, and I wanted to enter the store. And then the door was half opened by someone in the staff, and they were like, "What do you want to see?" And I was like, "Royal Oak." We have nothing available, and they closed it. So what I'm trying to say, sorry?
Where was it?
I will let you know. I'm not going to expose the store. This I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but this was my experience, and it was the opposite of the open door and the opposite of the messaging. But in more broader terms, a lot of watch enthusiasts here might know that there is a certain barrier to entry, might be physically, but also to buy a watch that you want. For example, if it's Royal Oak, there are some rumors that you need to have a purchasing history, you need to have a relationship with the boutique, and another brand that perhaps comes to mind, like Hermes, doesn't necessarily have openness as part of their branding or messaging. So I was wondering, under your watch, if this is something that you are planning to address, if this is something that you are planning to perhaps change, or is it part of the strategy? And if it is, how then are you aligning that with your goals of attracting younger generations who are perhaps wanting to buy a watch, who are in the market for a watch, for example, for the graduation, don't have a purchasing history, are dragging their parents. Maybe I was one of them, but cannot access it for one reason or the other. Thank you.
Katrina, go girl.
Hey.
First of all, we are in the business of humans, and it could be that unfortunately we don't offer the service to everybody as we want. That's why we love the feedback, because when I receive these questions, and my team knows, I send them a request and what happened in that boutique, why is it happening, maybe there are too many people inside, they were stressed. We are human, but this shouldn't be the norm, and we correct this lack of openness whenever we stop. So in general, we try to do our best. If things don't work, we try to address them, that's for sure. If you enter a boutique and you want a Royal Oak, you will not get it for one reason. We produce for the model range between 100 to 200 to a maximum 500-600 of the same model per year in the world. And we have 50, 100 requests for each watch. We cannot serve everybody who wants to watch. We can't. The only way to do it is all of a sudden we change the way we produce. We use machine, but then we cannot do all the finishings we do here, and we do a fully machined operation where you don't see any watchmaker anymore, all fired, and we produce everything, and we don't want to do that. So the limitation comes from a manufacturing choice. So Unfortunately, when people say, why don't you do more? Because it's a choice. It's not, it's a choice on how the watch needs to be produced and needs to look, because it won't look like that in the watch. So that is the artifact. So will you eventually get a watch? Yes, if you build a relationship. And why the relationship? Because we're not in a business of transaction. We are not selling bread. We are going to have a relationship with the client forever, because this watch will last multiple generations. We come back to us multiple times for reparation. We know the clients, we talk to them, we try to understand how the watch fits their life, we give them advice. This requires a relationship. And that's why we say we need you to come to the place, get to know us, and then over time, I'm sure you get the watch. It takes sometimes certain years or less, depends also on the watch and how many we produce. That's the true answer.
Thank you. I think that is a perfect note to end this event on. Sorry for everyone else, but in the interest of time, this is the end. Ilaria, it has been an absolutely fantastic experience hosting you in London today. I'm going to quote you one last time.
Hey.
And say that I know you've always wanted to teach at university.
Yes, it's true.
And I'm sure everyone here would agree with me when I say that you have been the best professor.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege to share this moment with you. I loved all your questions, provocative and non, and I learned a lot with answering. So thank you so much and good luck with your studies.